I want to show you what I genuinely think is the coolest computer I've ever used. It's not the best or even the most useful, but the fact that it incorporates an e-ink screen alongside an exceptional OLED panel in a fully functional modern laptop makes it unique. This is the Lenovo ThinkBook Plus. Rarely anymore do I get excited about computers, which over the years I've come to view more as tools than toys. Computers help me get my work done, and that's it. But at CES, Lenovo showed off a goofy little device that reignited that fading love of gadgets. The joy that led me to buy strange digital assistants like the Sony Clie or obsess over expensive gizmos at the Sharper Image. Ever since Sony announced the first e-ink reader, I've been obsessed with e-ink technology. I do a lot of reading and these days even more writing, which means I stare at computer screens way too much. And for me, this leads to eye strain and headaches. For the past few years, I've contemplated various solutions to this, always arriving at the notion of writing with an e-ink display. E-ink doesn't blast light into my eyes like an LCD or OLED. Rather, light reflects off the screen much as it does with traditional paper. My obsession with e-ink led me to buy the FreeWrite Traveler. I have a whole video about why it's not an ideal solution, which you can find in the description below. I also purchased an e-ink tablet, the Books, but the keyboard connection is so awful it makes writing on it even more frustrating than not. And besides, neither of these two devices support Scrivener, my writing tool of choice. Then there's e-ink monitors, but those aren't really portable. I kept coming back to the idea of how much I'd like to see an e-ink screen on a laptop. But then I thought no mainstream company would be crazy enough to attempt it. And I certainly don't want to throw money into vaporware Kickstarter projects. In steps Lenovo, a company that isn't shy about experimenting with new form factors with extremely limited mass appeal. It turns out they were crazy enough to release this niche product. Once called the ThinkBook Plus Twist, now renamed the ThinkBook Plus Gen 4. However, when the mid-year release timeframe came and went with no sign of the product, I figured they'd reconsidered, and when they did eventually release it, they listed it at the astonishing price of over $3,000. And there was no way I'd pay that much. E-ink aside, the computer might be worth $1,400 tops, and I was willing to add another couple $100 for the e-ink screen, but $3,000? No way. I put it out of my mind. And then a couple of months later, they slashed the price in half to $1,500. And I guess it wasn't selling well. Whatever the reason, I sold my other PC laptop and bought the ThinkBook immediately. Now, here's where things get complicated. Like I said earlier, this computer is unique. It's very cool, and yet there's a lot of problems. Let's start with the screen, or screens, since that's probably what interests you the most. There's not a lot to say about the OLED side of the display. It's a great 13.3-inch OLED screen with all the pros and cons that always accompany that display technology. Deep blacks sit beside almost untamable, vibrant colors. The thing eats battery life, and you have to worry about burn-in over time. There's also a touchscreen that supports stylus input. However, if you close the laptop or twist the screen around, you get to the e-ink display. When not in use, this 12-inch screen will show you a wallpaper which you can change. Since it's e-ink, showing a static image doesn't consume any electricity. You have a couple of options when it comes to using the display, only one of which interests me. First, Lenovo offers a super limited e-ink interface, which has access to like an e-reader and a couple other functions. Really, this isn't a good device to replace your Kindle. It's too heavy and unwieldy to use in tablet mode for very long, so don't think you'll be reading the next novel here. Plus, battery life nowhere near matches that of a Kindle, something I'll get into later. Second, you can use the e-ink screen as a normal Windows display, and this is what interested me. I can pull up my Scrivener document, flip the display, and start writing without having to worry so much about when I'll get a headache from the OLED panel. It sounds like a dream, right? Well, it's a bit less ideal in practice. The screen refreshes at a paltry 12 Hz. A normal display is 60 Hz, though many modern screens have a variable refresh rate of up to 120 Hz, or even higher for gaming machines. This means motion is bad on e-ink. Videos are almost unwatchable, and even moving the mouse around can get confusing. I had assumed Lenovo used a Kaleido 3 e-ink display, but based on the performance, I'm wondering if they went with an older technology. And compared to my Books tablet, for example, the Lenovo display is simply worse. Colors are muted, yes, but more than that, the trade-offs between the quality and fast motion seems much more pronounced. Let's look at typing as an example. Swipe down from the upper right of the display and you can change display modes. A dynamic mode decreases the lag between when you hit a key and when the letter appears on the screen at the expense of image clarity. Reading mode displays much higher quality images, but handles motion poorly. Now, on the Books tablet, there's a happy medium, but not so much on Lenovo. The dynamic mode's quality is simply too low. It's grainy, text is uneven, and ghosting is a major issue. When you go to a new line of text, you can kind of see the previous line between and beneath what you're typing. Switching to reading mode immediately fixes the quality issue. Text becomes crisp and legible, the whites are smooth. Yet typing in this mode can be distracting because the screen lags behind. You might also find weird artifacting as things on the screen change, since it's not dynamically refreshing itself in the same way. I wish there was a third balanced option like on the other tablet. The front light is nice though. It provides a smooth, even light across the display that doesn't lead to nearly the same amount of eye strain as a backlit panel. And overall, once I got used to the downsides, I found the experience acceptable for writing my first draft. Editing, however, is another matter. If you're jumping around and doing a lot of rewriting, the lag will absolutely slow you down. Highlighting text is annoying, as is moving the cursor around quickly. Using the touchscreen mitigates the issue slightly, but it's not a perfect solution. My overall opinion is that the use case for the e-ink screen is just very narrow because of its inbuilt limitations, and this really isn't an issue with e-ink itself, at least not necessarily, since the Books tablet has solved many of these annoyances with its balanced mode. And moving on to the keyboard, I'm sorry to say that we have yet another mild disappointment. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a terrible keyboard, it's actually quite good. The problem is that it's not even as good as the modern keyboards on Lenovo's other laptops, like from its revered ThinkPad line, not to mention its older boards, which were even better. This is just a good keyboard, which for me isn't good enough given how much I type. And the other downside I didn't expect, particularly with an e-ink display, is the lackluster battery life. Intel's 13th generation i7 chips aren't known for their power efficiency, but still, I expected more than a few hours. The OLED display will drain the machine in just 4 hours or so, while you can get maybe twice that much on the e-ink screen if you're careful. But come on, my 16-inch MacBook Pro can literally last 24 hours if all I'm doing is typing. Even my much older ThinkPad lasts 12 to 14 hours with its extended capacity battery. I'm willing to partially blame this on Intel, but it's still annoying. And sure, the ThinkBook is fast, but how fast does it really need to be given the use case? Perhaps a slower chip would have served the machine better. I would have preferred a bit more longevity. And everything else is fine. A fingerprint reader integrated into the power button is passable, while the webcam is decent enough. The speakers are predictably terrible, and the trackpad is solid. The stylus works well and is useful for editing PDFs, but really not good enough to replace a Wacom stylus or Apple Pencil when it comes to drawing. All this has left me thinking. The fact that this computer includes 2 screens is very cool, but perhaps eliminating the OLED would have resulted in a superior product. Now, let's face it, most people are buying this specifically because of the e-ink display. And then again, e-ink might be too hobbled to make that sort of device worth buying. I'm really not sure. I can only say with certainty that despite all its pitfalls, I love that this computer exists, and I enjoy writing on it. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, consider subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.